Hey, the DNC putting out a statement calling the ruling against this travel order a huge win for our Constitution. But President Trump calling it judicial overreach to former Bush 43 chief immigration lawyer Lynden Melmed. Lynden. It's gone back and forth now, and you've got two judges more or less saying that because of comments that President Trump and/or surrogates have made throughout the campaign and since, that it seems to me that no matter what he puts through as a temporary travel moratorium, in their eyes will always be a travel ban aimed at Muslims.
Yeah, that's a real possibility. So the courts are trying to figure out what was the purpose of this policy. And at the time the first order went into effect, all they had out there was President Trump's campaign statements about a Muslim ban. Since that time, after that first order was issued, the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice have put out bases for the new executive order, but it was clear that these judges based their decisions on statements that were made before the first executive order, and they're not looking to let the president out of that box anytime soon.
Well, Stephen Miller was on Fox News Channel. He made some comments, and both judges alluded to those comments, that essentially he was saying to the public that these bans, or these orders rather, were the same thing. And was it okay for them, for both of these judges, to cite that as a reason to underscore the fact that in their minds it was a Muslim ban?
Well, this is not the first time that immigration actions have been brought up before the courts, and the courts having to figure out where those constitutional lines are. Traditionally, courts have been very reluctant to look behind the stated reasons for executive action. As long as an action was facially valid, just facially valid, they're reluctant to look behind those reasons. But here you have the president himself as a campaign statement, and then have his top policy advisor making statements about their purpose for the executive action. And so it teed it up as something that the courts could put their hooks into and base their decision on. But in the past, this is unprecedented in the sense that courts in the past have been reluctant to look behind the documents themselves.
Judicial activism is a term we've become accustomed to over the last several years, more so now perhaps than in anyone's lifetime. There are five, that I know of, there were five members of the Ninth Circuit judges who were appointed by Republican presidents that have come out and said that they think the rulings have been completely off base, without merit. So I guess here, are we just stuck with a judicial system that's now going to start to rule against with party lines rather than the way the Constitution and the framers set out our laws in the first place?
Well, it's a little bit early to reach that conclusion in this situation. Immigration is its own space with its own issues and different constitutional analysis. But you're right, five judges on the Ninth Circuit did write a fairly lengthy dissenting opinion where they took dissent with the lower court rulings. I think this is going to go up. I think the president views himself in a win-win situation. He's either going to win on the merits or he's going to be able to point the finger at the courts. And so I think you're going to see it continue to play out there. Yeah,
but if he points the fingers at the court and this never goes into effect, ultimately he loses out in his goal, his stated goal of keeping America safe.
Yeah, he does. He's going to have to point the finger at the judges, and you know, I don't think folks at the Department of Homeland Security want that outcome. They want to be able to see this executive order put into effect.
Before I let you go, Lynden, the idea now that it perhaps goes to an eight-person Supreme Court, could you handicap a potential outcome?
Well, like I said, I do think in the past that the courts have been very deferential towards executive action, particularly when it bumps up into constitutional issues. So I think right now I would say that the executive branch feels like they're in a good place if it goes up to the Supreme Court.
All right. Thank you very much. We really needed that help there. This is a complicated story that seems to get more complicated each time. We appreciate it.